Mr. Chairman has stated, I, as the image maker of the Senate, was seriously moved and quite discomfited with the state of the odious reputation that the Senate is degenerating into, and the public opprobrium that is being generated by the behavior of one of us at the plenary on February 20, 2025. And as the image maker of the Senate, I started receiving a lot of calls, both locally, nationally, and internationally, and even exponentially from even members of my own family, that what is happening in the Senate. It became quite very difficult for me to even address the deluge of those demands that I have to talk and tell the public what really happened. And on that said day, February 28th, Thursday, 2025, at the Senate, in the plenary, in the chamber of that day, that was almost a breakdown of law and order in the chamber. That there was almost a kind of legislative topsy-turvy. Because one of us, Senator Natasha Akpabio, was vehemently opposing the directive that her seat has been changed to somewhere else within the chambers. And she was duly informed by the sergeant at her, but she did not go to that assigned seat. And when we go by our orders, because like I said on the floor of the Senate, when I was moving the said motion, that we have our standing orders, which are our rules, our statutes, it's our internal constitution, because we are empowered by the various sections of the Constitution, that is the National Assembly, to make our own rules that will guide us, since we are not barbarians, since it is not an animal farm. And even in an animal farm, there is a modicum of decency and decorum. The standing orders clearly stated how, where, when, why a senator will behave in the chambers, even almost outside the chambers too, because it stipulated our actions at committee levels and then oversight functions. So, and going by section, by order 6 of that our standing rules, which are our orders, whereby it was expressly stated, statutorily stated, vividly stated, exponentially stated, that the Senate President is the only consenting authority that can allocate seats for senators. And the following section stated that a senator can only speak when he or she is properly seated on the seat allocated to him or her. Meaning that does not mean that wherever you are in the Senate chamber, that you can raise up your heart to be recognized to speak. If it is like that, it means that the rest 108 can just be speaking from wherever. And then it means that any senator can be at Wuse Market and raise up his hand, and maybe through video coverage, and tell the presiding officer that I'm raising my hands up here, you have to recognize me. So that is kind of anomaly that that order is trying to cure. And we all subscribe to our orders. So on the said day, there was an uproar because our own colleague, our dear colleague, Senator Natasha Akpabio refused to go to the seat that was newly allocated for her. And the Senate President, who was presiding that day, directed that she should properly sit where she is allocated to be before she can raise a point of order, because our colleague was raising a point of order hinging it on the permission, the express permission of Order 10. And we all know that we are going to count 6 before we can count 10. And we all know, like I said, that Order 6 stipulates that you can only talk where you are supposed to sit. Where you are supposed to sit. Not wherever. Not wherever that you can talk. And so, if you are not in order, you cannot raise a point of order. And that day, it expressly showed, statutorily showed, that our colleague was not in order. So she cannot raise a point of order. But she vehemently wanted to raise the order, which brought the presiding officer not even to invoke all the other powers that is written in our order book, that the presiding officer can even order a senator out if that senator is going to rancorously affect the business of the legislation. But this order was not invoked by the presiding officer. Tension rose up. Senators started appeasing our own colleague to obey the directive of the presiding officer, which at the end of the day was not obeyed. And nothing happened. But fortunately, the leader of the caucus from Kogi, that day, on behalf of the Kogi senators, which our own colleague belonged to, apologized on behalf of the said senator and Kogi's caucus, which the Senate took with equanimity. Unfortunately, the media has already picked it, the public has already picked it, and then it became a kind of very sordid debate, astonishing, demeaning, perilous, pernicious debate outside the Senate. And then I, Senator Yemi Adarabodu, the spokesperson of the Senate, have to be at the receiving end. I started holding the longer side of the stick, which is too heavy for me to bear. And now I had to come to the Senate, to the floor. And I raised it, that yes, you have to come to Macedonia and assist the inhabitants of Macedonia. And I raised the motion that unless something is done to instill discipline and strict adherence to our orders and rules, that if we are permitted as senators who are lawmakers to keep breaking our own internal laws, then how are we going to handle those people that are breaking the laws that we are making for Nigeria and Nigerians? So because of this, I raised a motion which comprised of my report over what I experienced for a very hot, unsalacious 4 days, including a big weekend that I'm supposed to have my arrest. So, and then this culminated into a unanimous support of my motion that this should be referred to the Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions Committee. And I hold it, and I wish to hold it, and I wish to reiterate once again that unless the Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petition Committee does its job as stipulated by our books, then definitely this kind of behaviors will be a very frequent occurrence. Then the work of the legislation will be jeopardized. Then why we are here as lawmakers will be compromised. And so that's why I'm here to stick to what I said, what I raised, what I defended, what I presented, and what I reported on the floor of the chamber of the 10th Senate. I stand by it.
On rules and business, on a motion to investigate alleged incidences of corruption and inefficiency at the Ajaokota Steel Company Limited and the National Iron Ore Mining Company located in Kogi State, ably moved by Senator Akpabio, Udwan and Natasha, Kogi Central. The chairman, Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct, and Public Petitions, National Assembly Complex, Abuja. The Senate Committee on Rules and Business acknowledges concerns raised during Senator Akpabio Udwan's interview on Arise News Channel on February 28, 2025, where she accused the Senate President of deliberately delaying her legislative duties. Given the importance of transparency and procedural integrity in legislative processes, the committee deems it necessary to clarify the facts surrounding her motion on the investigation of alleged corruption and inefficiency at Ajaokota Steel Company Limited and the National Iron Ore Mining Company. Contrary to claims of deliberate suppression, the motion followed standard legislative procedures. On Wednesday, February 7, 2024, Senator Natasha raised a point of order pursuant to Senate Orders 41 and 51, seeking an investigation into corruption and inefficiency at a Ajaokota Steel Company, and she requested the immediate presentation of her motion. However, due to a scheduled security briefing involving service chiefs, the National Security Advisor, the Minister of Defense, Police Affairs, and Interior, as well as the Inspector General of Police, the Senate deferred the motion to the next legislative day. The security briefing continued until February 13, 2024. The motion was subsequently rescheduled for debate on February 21, February 22, and 27, 2024. It was eventually debated and resolved on February 27, 2024. In the light of the above, the committee affirms that all motions appearing on the Senate order paper undergo approval by the Senate President. The motion moved by Senator Natasha Akpabio was scheduled through the standard legislative process. Contrary to allegations that it was debated because the Deputy Senate President was presiding, the Senate President had approved it for consideration under Orders 41 and 51 on February 7, 2024. The scheduling of motions follows procedural rules and is subject to time constraints during plenary sessions. The position of motions on the order paper often results in their deferment when Senate sittings exceed beyond allocated time. The motion on Ajaokota Steel and NEOPCO was affected by these procedural realities. As a question of legislative scheduling and setting the Senate's priorities, the committee emphasized that motions and legislative measures appearing on the order paper are not automatically deliberated upon on the same day. Legislative priorities and time constraints influence the deliberation of motions. Urgent matters such as requests from Mr. President, issues of national security, or closed-door sessions often take precedence and can lead to rescheduling. This procedural reality was evident in the handling of Senator Akpabio's motion, which was deferred on some occasions before it was finally debated upon. Such occurrences are common in parliamentary proceedings and do not reflect bias or an attempt to suppress any legislative contributions. In retrospect, since assuming office as Senator for Kogi Central, Senator Akpoti has exercised her legislative mandate effectively. She has sponsored 3 bills, one of which is at the committee stage, while the other 2 have passed the first reading. She also moved a motion on the passing of the Ohinoye of Ibiraland, Dr. Abdurrahman Ado Ibrahim. The committee reiterates that every senator is accorded fair and equal opportunities to contribute to legislative debates. The case of Senator Udwan is no exception. The Senate remains committed to upholding its procedural integrity and ensuring that all senators, regardless of seniority, are given avenues to engage meaningfully in the legislative process. Notwithstanding, the Senate Committee on Rules and Business plays a key role in structuring the legislative agenda. The process of scheduling motions, bills, and debates is guided by established parliamentary procedures. It is standard practice for motions to be rescheduled based on the availability of time and the urgency of other national issues. The committee ensures that all motions follow due process and are subjected to deliberation in a structured manner. Therefore, the claim that certain motions are given preferential treatment or suppressed does not align with parliamentary norms. The scheduling of Senator Akpoti Udwan's motion followed established Senate rules, and any delays were due to normal legislative rescheduling constraints. With the facts clearly expressed, the Senate Committee on Rules and Business assures the public that due process was followed in the handling of Senator Akpoti Udwan's motion. The motion was approved by the Senate President, scheduled for deliberation in line with the standard procedures, and eventually debated on February 27, 2024, and was thereafter referred to an ad hoc committee constituted for that purpose, headed by Senator Adegbumire. The delays were procedural and not indicative of any attempt to suppress her motions. The Senate remains committed to transparency, accountability, and fairness in her proceedings. All senators, regardless of experience, are provided the necessary support to navigate the legislative process effectively. The case of Senator Akpoti Udwan underscores the procedural realities of parliamentary operations and the importance of patience in navigating legislative engagements. Thank you, and may God bless you. I am Senator Titus Zam.
I am the DD Sergeant-at-Arms in charge of Mesbiara and the Chambers Sergeant-at-Arms generally. The incidents on my own side, I will start from Wednesday, 19th February 2025, immediately after the closure of the sitting on that very day. That's after the adjournment. The Chief Whip, in person of Senator Mohammed Tahir Monguno, informed me that the leadership of the Senate had directed him to effect some adjustments, some changes on the minority side as a result of the movement, or in other words, defection of 2 senators from minority side to majority side. The senators are Senator Ned Monir Nwoko and Senator Onyebochi Francis Ezenwa, who accordingly moved to the majority side, therefore created a vacant spaces. So I met the Chief Whip. He also reminded me that I should do it in line with the ranking, as it has been the tradition of the Senate. You are all aware of FIC ranking. You have to respect who comes first, and depending on the number of your appearance or attendance in the Senate. And I went of Senator Kau, So I made a proposal that Senator Akpabio was the only person that was from House of Reps that still was joined with those first timers. So automatically we brought him forward. Next to him was Senator Aminu Iya Abbas and the rest. So I made the chief, he said, yes, Senator Iya Abbas, even though he's the first, coming for the first time, I think being him a speaker for some years in the House of Reps, you can bring him forward to be together with those people. Then the next two that I brought forward were that of Senator Friday Combowell and that of Samaila Kaila. So I brought them forward automatically. The next line to be moved is the last line up there. The last line where those people that are sitting at the extreme end of the minority side. So when I went there, the first on that seat is Senator Natasha Udoaga. So automatically, and in the movement of, within the Senate chamber, the sitting ranking starts from the aisle where Senate President normally enters the chamber. So when you start from there, you move to the extreme end. When you finish, you start from the aisle, move to that end. So Natasha was moved automatically from her former seat at the extreme back to the extreme left immediately after Senator Ireti Kingibe, in line with those ranking tradition of the Senate. And those remaining four people, Senator Akobundu, Senator Ekong, Senator Yaro, Senator Pam, and Senator Johanna, they are on, since they are at the extreme end, they just move automatically to the next seat, where Senator Akobundu will sit at the present former seat of Senator Natasha, and in that, they move in that order. So that was how we moved it. So I did that. I told him that I will effect it tomorrow. He said, no, go and do it this evening. So that first thing tomorrow morning when we come, we will see a new arrangement. So I went back and I effected those changes. Immediately I finished, I called most of my staff that were around. I told them, I said, please, this is a new instruction from the leadership. And any senator you know that has been affected, please inform them tomorrow morning and guide them to their new seats. The few that were there really, the following morning on the 20th, that is Thursday, as they were seen right from the register table, anyone that came, they informed him. I could remember Senator Ekom came, they informed him, and he went, even though he raised some observations, but he said, okay, no problem. He sat down on his seat. Senator Akpabio also was approached. He went to his seat. And the next one that came was Senator Natasha. I could remember one of my staff, in person of Sandra, she approached her because she's not in charge of register table and reports. So she told her, as I directed them, that this your seat had been moved to so. She said, where? I said, you have moved to that place. She said, no. Please, over my dead body, I will not be there. Nobody can move me to that place after showing her that seat. So our own is to do the work of nothing but the work of a messenger, inform her, and as she did not start, she started shouting. She started shouting that she would not go there. That was before we came into the chamber, while we were in the Senate President's office waiting. That was the time she came in. So from the Senate President's office, we were even watching through that CCTV inside SP office. So I called the attention of all my staff, Madam Macy. I said, see what is happening there. So she went, she said, this is what is going on. I said, well, let's wait and see what will happen. You have informed her, you have discharged, we have discharged our own responsibility. Not until when the procession came in, Senate President entered the chamber. He entered, then some consultations were going on, trying to appeal to her to listen, but she was sitting down on her former seat. Not until when the vote and proceeding was approved, immediately after the approval of votes and proceedings, then Senator Tahir Monguno raised a point of order, informing the Senate about the new new changes, which he said clearly that Senator Natasha should move to her newly allocated seats next to Senator Ireti Kingibe. If her refusal to do that may tantamount to that she may not be allowed to speak, because it is against the rules of the Senate, a senator to speak from a seat not allocated to him. She insisted. So after he finished his point of order informing the Senate, she too equally raised another point of order according to her under privileges, that her privilege has been infringed, therefore she cannot move to that. Still, SP says he will not recognize her until when she moves to that her newly allocated seat. So she continued shouting, following a lot of unparliamentary languages. So based on that, SP directed that Sergeant at Arms should go and off her microphone and take her outside the chamber, so that we'll have a relative peace within the chamber. We approached her. Immediately we are moving there. We called some of the ladies so that somebody will not hide under tradition, and even though in discharging our duties we can do beyond that. So as we approached, many senators surrounded her that no, we should not move her. They're trying to plead to the Senate President to see normalcy is brought back to the chamber. So in a nutshell, this is what I can easily. Okay, sorry. Lastly, after a while, she sat down. Then Senate continued with its proceedings. Then first readings were read, I think including one of our motions.
She sat down where?
She sat down inside the chamber on that her old seat. So immediately after the old seat not allocated, immediately after the consideration of the first reading, I noticed she just went out. And on that very day, one of the senators from Kogi State, Senator Issa Jibrin, stood and raised another point of order, pleading and apologizing to the Senate on her behalf. And Senator Karimi Sonde also corroborated with an addition that he too, she should apologize to him for showing an insultive words on him on an issue that is not even known to him. He did not act it, and he told her about this was the fact those things happened. So in brief, this is what I know, what I could remember on that very day. And immediately after that, on Monday, I summoned a meeting where I asked like 5 of my staff to tell me what they could remember that transpired on that very day. Sandra, Mekaswa Abari Karshi, Messi Rashid, Esther, they have all, and Udime, they have all presented their report, which I attach here, that I would like to, if allowed, I will submit to the committee. Thank you, sir.
Clerk.
The first is to say that the incidents that has brought us here this afternoon happened during Senate plenary. And I think it's important that we understand that. And why do I emphasize that? Is that during Senate plenary, senators are at liberty to debate, to speak, to voice their opinions, and there is immunity. That is why what we say on the floor of the Senate, no outsider can come and say, I sue you. However, for there to be decorum, the rule then says this must be the conduct of senators during plenary. Because the rule recognizes that you cannot take us to court. But there must be decorum. So the rule sets out what decorum must be. One of them is that you are allocated a seat by the presiding officer, the Senate President. He allocates you a seat, and you must sit there. Why must you sit there? So that there can be the conduct of the business of the Senate is properly regulated. The moment you do not do that, then you have chaos. The moment you do not do that is that you can do whatever you want to do and there are no repercussions. Then the rule book goes on to now say, if you don't do certain things, these are the consequences. I want you to bear something in mind. Today, the Senior Senator Natasha Akpabio went and sat at her allocated seat. Why? Because she recognizes that the point of order that she wants to make today, she will not be able to make it except she sits at her seat. except she sits at her seat. Now, that for me shows that it is an admission that what she did before today was wrong. Let us put things in perspective. If she felt that what she did the other day was right, she would have sat at the same seat and raised a point of order. So even her action today shows that the Senate has done the proper thing. And I think you journalists must be fair to us. Now, she comes and lays before the Senate a petition. Let us understand something. The Senate is the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is not Godwin Akpabio's Senate. He is the presiding officer, but it is the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is therefore our responsibility to protect that institution. The moment we all or anybody pisses in the communal pool, we have a problem. That we must understand. The moment we allow any senator to piss in the communal pool, we have a problem. And that is what we are experiencing here. Now, so she places a petition, because I don't want to say they don't want to hear a petition. Now, in placing a petition, there's also a rule. Senator Uduaga is a lawyer. If you file a case in court, there's a procedure to follow for the court to assume jurisdiction. There's a procedure here. That procedure says you cannot yourself lay a petition signed by you, complaining about conduct that you say was visited on you. And that is what the chairman is saying. That we will listen to you provided you follow our procedure. It will be wrong for us to sit here and allow the procedure and rules and regulations of the Senate to be violated. It's not about her. If I, Adeni Ayodele Adegbami, does it tomorrow, then I'm not entitled to be heard. And I think it's important that you, the pressmen, understand what we are facing here. There's no witch hunting. And therefore, all that was said on the floor of the Senate today is that go and follow the rule in presenting your petition. And that is what the chairman is saying. We will listen to you provided you follow the rules. Now, let me say something before I stop. I listened to her when she said, oh, I have order 10. I can raise any order from anywhere. But today, she didn't do that now. She didn't do that. And why did she do that? It is only Article 6, Order 6, that talks about sitting arrangement and compels you to talk from where you are seated. So if you are moving a motion, can I go and sit with the clerk? Or sit beside the Senate President? Where is it written? Even in Order 10, that this is where you must sit. Only Order 6 talks about where you must sit. And that order says, you will sit and be heard from your seat. No. Let us please understand that. It is not about shouting. It's not. And when you talk about sexual harassment, I don't even want to go there because I think one doesn't excuse the other. Let's not muddle up the issues here. One does not justify the other. On the day Senator Uduaga got up, there were no allegations made against any fellow senator. Right. So how can she come back today and try to justify that? And then the press is lending their voice to justifying it.
As I was saying, haven't exhausted all that we need to hear on this matter. We will adjourn this matter, but distinguished colleagues will have to stay back for us to do our deliberation while the press excuse us, so that we'll be able to report back to the House.